Bungie's Marathon remake was initially revealed on May 24th, 2023, which officially got a follow-up gameplay trailer nearly 2 whole years later on April 12th of 2025. This trailer was followed with a handful of additional creations with a narrated gameplay trailer, creator highlights from the developers themselves, and even a cinematic trailer reaching nearly 9 minutes in length. This has all come from the heel of possibly the lowest community morale from Bungie's current flagship title, Destiny 2. Said game was for a time the only game Bungie had and allowed them to put all the cooks into the metaphorical kitchen and cook up some miracles when Bungie and Destiny seemed in a make-or-break state regarding the next big update. This happened more than once across the last almost 8 years of Destiny 2's time. Forsaken was a well-known point where it had to succeed or the future was looking quite bleak. We all know how good Forsaken turned out in the end. You could point to any yearly expansion after the launch of the 4 seasons content model that persists till this day and surmise that it would be a make-or-break moment for Bungie. Constant delays for yearly expansions became an expansion every 14 months, with the famously long season of Arrivals being almost 5 months before Beyond Light made its frosty debut. Beyond Light had been deemed a success, but it was another metaphorical death-saving throw for Bungie, as the introduction of the sunsetting system still leaves scars to this date. A similar state would come following the season of The Lost, predating the Witch Queen expansion, this time reaching almost 6 months in length. The first expansion that wasn't delayed was the Lightfall expansion, and said expansion would become less than good to quite a good portion of Guardians still currently participating in the war. Then with this additional delay came the final shape, the big closing act of Destiny 2 that brought back many players just to make sure to finish the fight and wrap up the Light and Dark saga. Now that we are done with the timeline of Destiny, we must look at the development of Marathon so far. While it was announced in May of 2023, Bungie has famously worked on games in secret for quite some time. The first teaser of Destiny being present in Halo 3 ODST, which released in 2009, and Destiny being announced many years later and released 5 years later in 2014. It's not a shocker to think that Bungie had been working on Marathon for some extended time, even before announcing in one of dozens of TWABs that they had something other than Destiny in the works. Delays with Bungie releases have gone back to 2020, which at the time would have been pandemic related. The delays did not stop, however, with many more occurring, and it is not a stretch to think that developers pulled from Destiny to make Marathon was a handicap in the long run. Oftentimes, Crucible felt like it was under-updated. Gambit had been practically left for dead in perspective of Destiny's many other activities. Persistent bugs that were often not fixed for weeks after being relayed in the reports, and some clear instances of shortcuts to finish seasonal content packages. Look no further than Season of the Deep, with the main arsenal being the return of the weapons from Gambit Prime and the Reckoning, and also those same weapons with taken effects placed on them. But say that Bungie copied and pasted the bones completely, since old ornaments from the original weapons also worked on the new Taken versions as well. Now in the hypothetical scenario where there was no delays for Destiny 2 ever, where every yearly expansion happened in the same September they started, we would be looking forward to Year 9 in the September of this year. Of course, this is the perfect world, there wasn't any pandemics, and we managed to keep everything in line. However, the elephant in the room regarding Bungie, of course, I would also agree, however, is that the 2 waves of layoffs in Bungie's staff affected Destiny's development for sure. Exactly how much each factor in though, between pandemics, Bungie layoff, and the possible parasitism from Marathon, no one can say for certain except Bungie themselves. So to start wrapping things up, do I think Marathon was a parasite to Destiny 2's development? Yes, in the end, Bungie's creations with Destiny just became more and more erratic in terms of keeping the community coming back for more. Personally, my friends list of active Guardians grew fewer and fewer with every season and has gotten to myself stepping off the metaphorical Destiny train, only keeping up with where the train is going, but from a distance. With all honesty, I am not looking forward to Marathon either. I know the meme right now is to call Marathon the next Concord and call it dead on arrival. Truth be, when I looked at Marathon, I respect the amount of detail shown in every trailer. It is clear there was a lot of effort put into making a lot of these visuals. This, however, only goes so far, as Anthem looked really cool, but we know how poorly that flame fizzled out. There are so many colors, it's hard to find any symmetry in this world. So much so, I have coined Marathon's art style, color vomit. I wouldn't even say Borderlands matches this description. Not to mention on top of the visuals, the chosen genre. Extraction shooters are quite the tough market, With competition like the long-standing Escape from Tarkov, which popularized the extraction shooter genre, and is currently cheaper, with Marathon at a supposed $40 and Tarkov being $35. Then there is also what is free. Delta Force may be a Battlefield-like shooter, but it also has its own extraction shooter mode to boot. That is all before considering its cousin of a genre, the Battle Royale, on the market. If you don't believe me, consider this. Extraction shooters would be 4 teams of 4 dropping into a zone, either to loot the place of valuables or to complete a central objective between all teams. Battle Royales would be 10 teams of 4 all competing to be the last man standing, looting gear to better stand a chance of surviving. You can see where I am indeed going with this. The change of genre from the original Marathon Doom shooter that it was to is a rough choice, considering Bungie has been making PvE titles for the longest time with separate PvP modes for competition between players. The only PvP-VE experiences Bungie has was loosely with Gambit and 1 or 2 Crucible modes across time that just had AI enemies present. Then there is the running gag of Bungie not being able to keep the PvE sandbox free of changes made to the PvP sandbox. It's gotten better, but not so much over the years, and some of the damage to Destiny's sandboxes have been permanent to both ends. Running a world where all the guns are balanced for the bots and the bots played by people seems like a very tall task for Bungie. Another creator of legendary drops on YouTube said it best when he put it this way: Marathon doesn't have an uphill battle. It's got a mountain to climb. Bungie has had an even more drastic make or break with 2 large IPs on the guillotine's block this time around. Marathon will need to be something really spectacular in its time, otherwise all the time spent on Marathon will be wasted energy, and Destiny's up-and-coming stories will be reduced to what-ifs and be a lot shorter than we may have expected it to be. And personally, I'm still not ready for Destiny to end, and I really hope Marathon isn't the end of Destiny either. With that, I appreciate your time listening. Of course, leave your comments down below to continue the conversation, and I will see you in the next video.